What is up, everyone? Welcome back to Chatting with the Comic Community, episode 81. This is the show where we take people from this amazing comic community, bring them on the show, get to know them a little bit more. And this individual I'm about to bring on is from a group, no, a league, no. How about we go with council? He's from a council, and they've been nominated for a CBC award. Since then, this individual has been popping up on other people's channels, and I've actually shared a screen with him. I thought this guy was very interesting, so I decided to bring him on the show, and hopefully you guys at home find him interesting too. So without further ado, let's bring on Cliff from the Council of Comics. What is up, my friend?
Hey, it's a great evening. I'm fresh from the comic book store. I've been traumatized by Transformers #1, so I'm ready. I'm ready.
You're ready, are you?
Yes.
Thank you so much, man, for taking the time, for running home from the comic book store to make this show and start recording it. I do appreciate that, my friend.
Hey, and thank you for having me. It's my pleasure.
So for the viewers at home that don't know a lot about you, give them a little rundown of who you are.
Oh, so let's see. I'm pushy. I'm aggressive. I collect comics. Right. There's that. And I work in healthcare, trying to connect people with good mental health. So, all of this is my break from all of that.
All right, man. Well, as you mentioned, you love comics. You're into comics. You're part of the Council of Comics. I want to know how you got into comic collecting / reading.
I was 2. I had to be 2. Like if we do the math, right? Like I was 2 when I first saw Superman on television. So like I immediately knew that I was attracted to this red cape and blue tights. I was just like, I loved it. I loved the whole flying thing. And it was weird because so a lot. Now other people refer to this as a specific cable station for CBS, but all I remember was it was my CBS, right? I remember it was Channel 2. I remember seeing Superman go through the thing and go to fly up to Lois, and it said to be continued, right? And then the next night we watched the end of it, and I was enamored with Superman. And then more time passed, and then like Superman 2 was on HBO, right? And let me tell you, it was like a year and a half before I ever got to watch Superman 2 from beginning to end with no interruptions. Like as a child, that felt like an eternity where I would always start the movie and the movie would always be 20 minutes in every time I caught it. And of course, we didn't always have cable when I was a kid. That was just like when we were balling, we had cable. When we weren't, nothing. So, and then of course, my mom bought me some Superman comics, but she had to read them to me. And the 3 that she got me happened to be this thing with Superman and Vartox was after Lana Lang. And so like that was funny. And of course, like this poor woman, I'm like forcing her to read this to me. And then when John Byrne's Man of Steel came out, it was all over the news, right? Because like I was not aware of Crisis on Infinite Earths yet or any of that. All I knew is that I like Superman. There's a whole new Superman series to collect. So I was collecting Man of Steel and I got into it. And it's funny because then I was like trying to like piece a bunch of stuff together, like, oh, this is like interesting about Superman, but how come I saw this comic and that comic? And I'm like, oh, this Crisis thing happened. And I'm like, I gotta collect those books so I can figure out what all this stuff is. And that's how you become a collector, folks. I need to figure out the background of what I'm reading and why it's happening. So I need to collect more comics.
So you've been collecting for years. Have you ever taken a break from collecting at all, or have you just been straightforward since you were a kid?
Straightforward since I was a kid. A tiny break into college, and it wasn't even like a complete break. It was like I was like keeping tabs on Superman and the Legion, And like I had a short box that I was hiding in my closet, and I got away with hiding it for a few months before finally somebody's like, what the F is this in your closet, Cliff? Like, you know, and I was like, you know, in the meantime, I'm like, why are you in my closet? You know, and I was like, and why is this the most interesting thing in my closet? Like, you know, when I think there's scarier things to find. So like, but yeah, I had Superman's Wedding Album in there, The Final Night, some Parallax stuff. But yeah, so it was just like, so that was like a gentle break. But no, the New 52 was my real break, because like everyone else was like, oh, so much good stuff. I was like, it broke my heart. I love Superman, and it was the first thing that it ran over with a tractor trailer. So, you know,
you can't diss the New 52 a lot, because it did give us good Batman, it gave us good Swamp Thing, and most importantly, it gave us good Animal Man. So,
I'm going to agree with you on two of those points.
Which
Swamp Thing and Animal Man were great. And boy, was I upset. Look, Batman is like too much for me. Like I have lived through an era of oversaturation of Batman, Joker, and Wolverine. So like those characters have just been too much for me. So it's very rare when I come out and I'm like, hey, this Batman book is amazing. You better believe it, because if I took the time to engage with it, you know, like Batman the White Knight, I'll give people that. It's a great series.
So have you been strictly DC your entire life, or you wandered over to the Marvel side and maybe the indie side?
I wandered over to the Marvel side the minute Uncanny X-Men 275 hit the stands. That was the day that I wandered over into Marvel. Actually,
and no indies at all?
You know, like I guess when Image came around, I started to dabble, you know, so man. All right, so of course there was Spawn and Youngblood and Wildcats, and I stuck with Spawn for a while. And the Wildstorm stuff, I would come and go with that. Like I really got into Stormwatch, and now when I read about, you know, behind the scenes of Stormwatch, I feel like I was one of the 3 people who was reading the book at the time. But I really liked it. There was like so much going on there, and they were battling the High, and you know, who was basically a Superman analog, right? And then of course and like as much as I was enjoying it, I thought the writing was great, the art was great, it wasn't selling. So of course they create the Authority, right? So I was all about that, and I was like, I've already been reading this, so like, yeah. So I was really into that. I really enjoyed Supreme, the Alan Moore run, of course. Like I didn't even look at Supreme. I was like, okay, another Superman analog, but it's not doing anything for me. As soon as I saw the first ad for Alan Moore on Supreme, that was it. I jumped in it. I have multiple copies of both trades around my house. So I'm a big fan of that. I really enjoyed Top 10.
Let's do that again.
Oh, do it again? I'm sorry.
Oh, no worries. There we go. Look at that.
I don't know if there's a more recent publication, but Checker did the last reprints of Volume 1 and Volume 2. Yeah, I'm trying to think of like what I know. There's lots of indie books that I picked up here and there, you know, and like every once in a while I'll see something like The Sentry, and there's another one. The Sentry was actually part of a group, and I have some of those too, and I just can't remember the name of the group, but that one had like a Superman analog in it, and basically Sentry was their Batman analog. And there was these guys, they were brothers, and they were called Gemini, and basically they had superpowers, but only one of them could have it at a time, and so they have to tag like the Wonder Twins to switch off the powers.
Interesting.
But I always aimed at superhero stuff. Like once in a big while, I would diverge. But even to this day, people are like, "Oh, you should check this out," and I'm just like, I mean, it seems nice. And they're like, what? I was like, my escapism is about superpowers and, good versus evil, or maybe occasionally some gray area stuff. Like, I'm like, I don't need stuff that reflects real life. Real life is hard enough as it is.
Exactly.
I'm like, I got
So
television and movies for that.
that is true. I do. My escapism is mostly TV, but comics is definitely an escapism as well. So earlier you stated like Superman is your guy. He's like your all-time favorite. I take it. I want to know, what are some of your favorite runs from Superman? Who is your favorite writer that has ever written Superman? And it could be more than one.
Wow, that's hard. That's really difficult because I very much enjoyed what Byrne did with him when he was on Action Comics and Superman. And but then we had, Marv Wolfman and Jerry Ordway were really delivering in Adventures of Superman. So like all of that is very impactful for me. Dan Jurgens, Louise Simonson, that was like my junior high school and high school year was that. It was them and the Death of Superman and the Reign of Superman and the wedding, like all of that. Like this team was there. So I was reading all these comics that all these people were producing. So like it's like ingrained in my DNA, basically the creators that were behind the Death and Return of Superman, because they basically were writing everything up until and through that happening. I think Dan Jurgens even has a couple kids named like Kal-El and stuff. They're in the if you look in the Superman wedding album, there's like actually a checklist of like who's like in the wedding shot at the end, and like his kids are drawn into the picture and their names are there. I thought that was so cool.
That definitely wouldn't surprise me. There's like a lot of different names that pop up now because of pop culture. I can't think of many right now, but I know that there is some that people are like, you know what, I like that name, and I'm gonna steal it.
Do you know how many people I know named Logan, and damn straight their father named them after Wolverine?
that tracks. That tracks.
Listen,
That
if there's one thing, John Byrne and Chris Claremont and oh no, not even them necessarily. Crap. If there's anything, look, if there's one thing that they gave us from Marvel, they gave us a Canadian superhero. They gave us Wolverine. Oh my God, he really is created by everybody. He's created by his creator notes belong to Chris Claremont, John Romita Sr., Roy Thomas, and Len Wein. So
yeah, I remember it's definitely all of them. That's why it's like a big debate on who created him, because like everybody always says one of those creators, and then they're like, no, it's the other one. And
by the
it's
way,
a big argument, but it's all of them.
But you want to know what's a big argument for me? Herb Trimpe is the first person to draw him. So he deserves to be on this list too. May he rest in peace. But, he's the one who drew that Hulk 181. And by the way, when I met him, he was already in his 80s. His mother was with him. It was at Albany Comic-Con. His mother was with him. She's already in her 90s. And my friend Clinton is absolutely obsessed with him. He named his son Logan, and he's telling him how much he loves Wolverine. I even named my kid Logan, this whole thing. And he's like, oh my, and then like all this talking, and he's like, he stops himself. He's like, can we get a picture together? And Herb Trimpe is like, absolutely. Grabs the edge of the 6-foot table and leaps over it as if he's Wolverine himself. I lost it. I'm like, look at this tall freaking 80-something-year-old man leaping over a table to take a picture. It was incredible.
He's spry for his old age.
There are no words, dude. There are no words. All right. It was a sight to behold. We were all in shock. My friend absolutely ate it up. Because like I said, it was like he was meeting one of his heroes. I was with the same guy. We saw Walt Simonson and Louise Simonson were at a signing locally as well, and this is many years ago too. And so like we're in a square going around this store, right? So that you, and there's like 12 guests too, just to be like really overwhelming, but we're focused on Walter and Louise, right? And of course, like one of the guys in line with us is like super uncomfortably close familiar with them, because like he's like calling her Wheezy like as soon as he gets up to her. And I'm like, oh my Lord. Like, I'm like, we're in for it. So my friend gets up, he's like, oh, you created one of my favorite characters. Like, he's like, or two of my favorite characters. He's like, I love Apocalypse. And he goes, and I love Archangel. And she's like, thank you. And Walt looks over, he's like, I created Archangel too, by the way.
I mean, give me some damn credit.
Oh, it was so funny, so funny. And then of course when I got to Walt, we started talking about Beta Ray Bill right away. And I was because I was really interested in what they thought about the animated episode of the Avengers that like featured Beta Ray Bill. And they were like, oh, it was like really beautiful. Like we got our own, you know, like they sent us a copy of it. We just like sat down and we watched it, and it was like really cool that they did this whole take on him. You know, it's just like one episode of Earth's Mightiest Heroes, but it's really good. And like it definitely left an impact on me. But that whole series is excellent in my opinion.
It's surprising to hear, because like not a lot of Marvel animations are like well known. Except for like maybe Spider-Man and the 90s X-Men. Past that, maybe what was the other X-Men cartoon?
Wolverine X-Men?
2000. No, it was before that one. And it was like one I really liked it too.
It's the one with the introduction of X-23.
Yes.
X-Men Evolution.
X-Men. There you go. And so for those of you that don't know, Cliff is right. The X-23 came from the cartoon and then transferred over to the comic, just like Harley Quinn did.
Yeah.
So there's not a lot of people that realize that. And yeah, so great cartoon. You haven't watched it, I think it's on Disney Plus. Definitely go check it out.
Oh, it is. Disney's got the whole catalog there. You know, they want to entice you.
Since we're on to cartoons, and you just talked a little bit about Avengers: Earth's Mightiest Heroes, obviously, I will give you the next Avengers movie cartoon that came out, where we had the children of the Avengers coming forth and becoming. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but that was a really good movie too.
Let me tell you.
I want to know what. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was impressed with it, and I was really crapping all over it. I'm like, I don't think any of us actually want to see this. And then one day I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna give it a try. And I was like, this is really good.
It was good for what it was in that, and I didn't expect that at all, because I'm more of like DC animated fan. Like I love DC more than I love Marvel. I'll go see the Marvel movies and that, and I do enjoy them sometimes, but I'm more of a DC fan. But I want to know, what are some of your like all-time favorite cartoons growing up with? Of course, like Spider-Man's got to be up there, X-Men's got to be up there, but like what are some of the deep cuts of some of the cartoons that you grew up with, superhero or non-superhero?
Well, I grew up with, first and foremost, the Super Friends, Thundercats, He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, G.I. Joe and Transformers, Silverhawks, Tiger Sharks, all of that. I loved when Cartoon Network did that Thundercats reboot, a good one, not that crappy one. Why did anyone pay money for that? I don't even understand. It was a terrible decision. But the good Thundercats reboot from like 2010 or 11 or whatever, I really enjoyed that. In one of, like, think episode 2, you're like looking at Mum-Ra's like monitors. You actually see all these characters from Tiger Sharks and Silverhawks and stuff. And I was like, oh, this is like the ultimate Easter egg for me. like there's me and like 200 other dudes out there who are sitting in their television going, yeah. So like, of course I was heavily influenced by the Super Friends, because like, you know, Superman was there. And also it's funny because Super Friends really would add to my discombobulation about comic books, because, you know, there's 2 episodes that Superboy appears in the Super Friends, right, where he is young Superman and time travel was involved. So when I get into Man of Steel, and, you know, and it's like the retelling of Superman's origin, like my first disappointment was like, oh, he wasn't Superboy. Like that sucks, you know? And I'm like, and also I was like, and I guess that kind of doesn't make sense. And this was like all part of like, why am I not filled in? And by the way, in the lower, actually, so the lower left-hand corner of your screen is an issue of Action Comics, which is part of Superboy and the Legion fighting the post-crisis Superman, right? Because like that Superboy was like saved in a pocket universe by the time trapper when all the events took place in the crisis, and then like he manipulated time travel, so whenever the Legion time traveled, they went to that pocket universe and they would meet Superboy, right? And Superboy would be their inspiration, but it was all a grand manipulation. And that just left me like bonkers. And I'm like reading Legion of Superheroes and I'm like sobbing as Superboy dies. And I'm like, why are they doing this? Oh man. And then later on I would find out.
So I don't believe you earlier when you were like, yeah, I took some time off of comics. I don't believe you on that, because your knowledge is like somebody that just never took time off of comics. Like you're passionate about it as well. So I'm impressed by that. So like I haven't grew up reading comics as much as like most people have, like Mark from Legion of Comics or yourself. And there's not a lot of Superman fans out there. I know there's a few, like Glenn, yourself, Mark, Paul is a Superman. Man's a huge one.
Yeah.
And Comic Journey is a Superman fan as well, surprisingly.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I feel like after I think I saw Naaman on one of your shows, and after hearing him talk about Superman, I was like, oh my god, I have like this invisible kinship with him now. Like, you know, the way he talked about owning his first Superman first of all, I don't think I could ever relate to that feeling he had when he bought his first Superman comic here in America. So like I got nothing on that. The most I could relate to was how exciting it was for me to buy my first Superman comic, period. You know? And it's funny because one of the first comics I ever bought was before Man of Steel, and it was just as I was figuring out how to like actually read properly. Is I think Justice Society of America like 36, right? And that book left me so confused. And I was like, why is this Superman older? Why is his S different? You know, and again, I would just be left with unresolved answers for a long time because I was like, all right, so like that's a different Earth. And then I'm like, okay, so other Earths were destroyed, and they just kept going and going and going. Man, it's tough. I've loaned people my Crisis trade to like just give them something epic to read. And they're like, Cliff, I can't relate to whatever this was that you were going through when you read this. And I'm like, oh.
It's funny that need to know like pushed you to like be like, you know what, I need to go out and find all of these other comics. I need to read all these comics because I love this character. I need to know how he became this character or what happened to him at said this time. So that's really cool as well. Has there been another character that has really pushed you towards that trajectory as well?
Man, no one quite like Superman. Like Superman is it. And then by extension, the Legion gets a lot of love from me. I have a lot of issues of Adventure Comics. And they're almost all Legion key issues, and they're still dirt cheap because you know there's only so many of us Legion fans out there. And whenever I'm watching somebody's stream or episode on YouTube, and I see them like hold up an Adventure Comics, right, and talk about it, and it's like, oh, this cover's cool, and I'm like, Brody sacrificed his life to save Saturn Girl. What are you talking about? It's a key issue. You know, they're like, oh, this is cool too. And I'm like, that is the first appearance of Karate Kid, Princess Projecta, and Nemesis Kid. What are you doing? What is happening? Use Google before you get on the freaking YouTube. Come on.
So I'm going to go back to cartoons here because you brought up Legion of Superheroes a couple of times. I think it was, I want to say early 2000s, this cartoon came out, Legion of Superheroes, and we had Superboy on that team. Did you love it? I
Oh,
that's
that was young Superman, by the way, young Superman, because they were still embroiled with the was it Jerry Siegel's estates? They were still embroiled, and they were making all sorts of excuses not to use the name Superboy. So they started producing young Superman. They even made a Legion of Superheroes HeroClix set, and Young Superman is the name of the HeroClix in that set.
I did not know that.
And then once they got that all squared away and sorted it out, we got Connor Kent back.
That's interesting. I did not know that was a thing, but I absolutely, that's the only I never read any Legion of Superheroes comics and that, but I did watch that cartoon, and I did watch the movie that recently came out that was more of a Supergirl movie than Legion of Superheroes. But I still liked it. But I absolutely loved that show, and that was my introduction to like Brainiac 5 and that. So how did you like that show at all, or did you think it was
took me a minute. It took me a minute, and then I really got into it. And then when they had Zod's son, I was like, oh my God, this show is just like absolutely like just pulling everything out of its bag of tricks. And then Imperiex, I was like, oh my God. I'm like, you guys are just, you're just going to do whatever you can to fire this show up. I was really waiting for Darkseid, right? Like that's what I was hoping for. And I have a feeling they weren't allowed to use him. But I don't know for sure.
That might be possible, because at that time too, it was the Justice League was going on, and I know Darkseid showed up in a couple of Justice League cartoons.
Yeah, just like they could use Batman on Justice League Unlimited, and they could even use the Joker on Justice League, but they could not use Nightwing, Batgirl, Robin. They could not use those characters. That's why you never see them appear. In fact, when you do see them appear, like when they fight Vandal Savage, when they time travel, you do see alternate universe Dick Grayson and Barbara, but they have no speaking words. It's just visual, so that you have a clue as to who you're looking at, and that's it. And that's because the show The Batman was airing on Kids WB, and that was a conflict. And they were like, nope, you can't use these characters.
It makes sense. It definitely makes sense. It's funny though, because even in Batman or Justice League Unlimited, they did even bring Terry McGinnis to Justice League Unlimited as well.
And again, he was open game because he wasn't tied to the Batman.
Yeah, and the Batman Beyond was done by that point too.
Yes,
but really gave us a great backstory to Terry McGinnis, though. What a great episode!
A backstory, a send off. I mean, I don't know if it's the final send off, but I mean, if that were the final send off, I was happy with it, right? And heck, they even threw Static Shock at us too. Grown ass Static showed up in that time travel episode with Kronos.
That is definitely true. I love Static Shock growing up. Static Shock and X-Men Evolution ran side by side for me, so I just watched both of those back to back.
As did I, even though I was much older and people would have probably shamed me for it, but who cares?
No, you're never too old for cartoons. Never too old for cartoons.
And that's what I tell most people. But I also know to read the room and not talk about it too much. Or unless
how old are you, if you don't mind asking? If you don't mind answering.
45.
45. I would have never guessed that. I thought you were still in your 30s.
It's the miracle of not having children. Like that's the beauty. Like this is the payoff.
Hey, hear that, everybody? Don't have kids.
I mean, unless you really want to. If you really want to, I mean, I hear they're wonderful. But my favorite thing about children, and I really do love them, but my favorite thing about them is giving them back to their parents.
It's like, here you go. I'm going home.
Yeah, it's like it was so lovely visiting. Your child's a dream. That's so great. Please take her or him and get them away from me.
Yeah.
I am
or
lucky.
In like in Gen V when the they. Because I don't know if you're watching Gen V, but it's just
because they switch back and forth. Yes.
Yeah.
It's Jordan, and I forgot the female name.
I think it's Jordan. I think they're just both Jordan, aren't they?
Maybe they're both
Jordans.
But I so far I kind of love Jordan. But I will tell you this: everyone lost points in the first episode when they wanted to run out of that bar and leave that girl to die. You know, and only our lead intro person stayed and actually helped her. But everyone else lost points with me. And then Jordan regained some points with me when Jordan was the one fighting Patrick Schwarzenegger. Can't remember his character. Golden Boy, right? Yo, when they were fighting Golden Boy, I thought that was absolutely fantastic. Alternating forms and powers, you know, it was like boom, boom, I'm invulnerable, and then swoop, and then like, no, okay, now I do force blast, bah! And I was like, oh, this is so well orchestrated.
The other character that I'm absolutely loving in the series is Emma, who played like cricket.
Yes,
I like Emma.
I feel for her, man. I feel for her. You know, like, because theater dude pissed me off.
You know? Yeah, that was pretty graphic, and that was the premiere episode.
Yeah,
that happened in. You guys, we won't spoil it. You guys, if you have not watched NV, go watch it. It was.
Listen, it's every bit as graphic as The Boys is, just different. I like the writing on The Boys better, to be honest, but that's it. Like, I'm still enjoying the show very much. So, it's just the tiniest thing for me to pick at.
Yeah, I like this story, and I just feel like you're jumping between characters and that you're making us care for them. But I do agree, like, after that first time where they ran out of the bar, they did lose points. But Andre, I do like Andre, but I've watched Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, which our lead actress and Andre have been both in it. So I absolutely loved Andre in that as well. Knowing that he's British and he's doing an English, like British
American accent.
American accent. There you go. It just works. And it killed me for the first little bit. Like the first episode, I was like, I know that actor. Where do I know him from? If he spoke British, I would have known.
Listen, again, Google's our friend and literally in our freaking hands 90% of the time. As soon as this show rolled up, I was like, who's in the cast? I was like, oh, Arnold Schwarzenegger's son. So like my friends are watching it. We were comparing notes the next day, and I was like, you know, that's Patrick Schwarzenegger, right? And they're like, what? And I'm like, yeah, that's Arnold's son. I was like, you know, and I forgot, oh my God, her name. And yeah, I forgot his mother's name. Oh, Maria Shriver. I'm like, yep, Maria Shriver's his mother. Yep, it's great. I'm like, that boy is part Arnold, part Kennedy. There you have it.
It works for the character too. I was surprised what they did with him in the first episode. I was like, whoa. That was fast.
It was great. Well, first of all, he delivered a fantastic performance, you know? Mm-hmm. So like I was very pleased, but like, yeah, I get a kick out of, you know, who he is in real life. And not that should really matter if you really want to be an actor, and in acting, you really don't want to be like held up to who your parents are, but like, hey, it is what it is.
Yeah, he does act a lot better than his father, so good job, kid.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and then you have some people.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say you've got some people like Kate Hudson and Oliver Hudson who, like, you know, like, you don't often think that Goldie Hawn is their mom, but there it is.
That's true. Sometimes nepotism is just a word that we use. Sometimes they're good in the role. Take James Gunn's wife. Everybody has an issue with her being in like movies that he does, but she's a good actress.
She, first of all, A, don't care. B, she is a good actress, you know? And as he has said, and we should all be smart enough to know this, many of the roles that she got came long before he came along. You know? So like, that is that. and I do like it.
Exactly. Going to switch it over to some movies because you mentioned earlier that you love the Superman movies. That's how you got into Superman. So it was Christopher Reeves always your Superman. What did you think of future Superman, even in the TV shows like
Well, wait.
Super?
How about Christopher Reeve is my first Superman, right? But in
Mhm.
Man of Steel #1, I read the editorial from John Byrne, and John Byrne talked about the adventures of Superman and the Haunted Lighthouse, right? And how that was like his introduction to Superman. And I'm like, what's the adventures of Superman? The Haunted Lighthouse. So I was like obsessed. And my mom was like, oh yeah, there was this guy, he played Superman, you know, he shot himself. It was sad and tragic. And I'm like, what? And I'm like, I need to know. So for years, I did not know. I did not have concrete experience watching George Reeves Superman, right? And my mom's friend at her job, she worked for an alarm company at the time. He had a brother who lived upstate from us, like hours upstate, right? Like Rochester, New York or something. And that dude recorded the Adventures of Superman, 2 6-hour VHS cassettes worth of Superman that he gave to his brother, who came down and brought them for me so I could watch them. And sure enough, by coincidence, the Haunted Lighthouse was one of the episodes. Superman the Mole Men was in there, as the 2-parter, not as the actual theatrical version. I would get that later in life. And so that was my exposure to George Reeves. And I watched those tapes over and over because some of them were black and white, some of them were color. I guess when they were airing them in reruns, they did not air them sequentially at all, right? But I got episodes with Phyllis Coates as Lois Lane. I got episodes with Noel Neill as Lois Lane, so I just got the whole freaking everything, right? So yeah, that became my other Superman experience. And then of course, the next Superman we would get would be Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman, with Dean Cain. And Dean Cain was very young and very handsome and very easy to watch, So that was cool. And I always wanted the show to be more like the comics, like all the time. I feel like season 1 came closest because I thought Lex was pretty damn good. I thought they gave us a really solid Lex. And then the show got wonk. I guess they changed writers a few times and the show became less, it had a less charming effect on me over time. But I still really love what they did.
How many seasons did that last? I personally have never watched that, so I have no idea. So I don't know about the Lex that you're talking about either.
Oh, you should. If anything, I would say give season 1 a shot just because their Lex was great. So it was only on 4 seasons. So you really could, if you really wanted to, you could power through it. John Shaw played their Lex. He would go on to star in Mutant X, which was a TV series, which Marvel was like, had like, it was like a crazy copyright like thing going on. But that show Mutant X was pretty freaking good, and he was great on it. And I'm trying to, in Smallville, I actually started having no interest in it, right? Like I was like, it's young. I'm like, it's young Superman. They get announced to the world, no flights, no tights, right? So I was like, well, why am I interested? And I was like, and I'm like, and of course, in the early episodes, I'm like, the villain of the week trope was crazy. Like the first episode I intentionally watched is the one with Amy Adams, eating kryptonite green shakes, and so she could be thin, and then she has to suck the humanoid fat out of creatures and people so that she could stay alive. And I'm like, oh my god, like that episode is crazy. I think that's only like episode 4.
That was a very creepy episode. Like I was like, oh my god.
Yeah, no, it was. I mean, I gotta give it to them. I was like, you get delivered on the creepy. Good job there. But wow, was this like unexpected? And then season 5 we get Kara Zor-El? But anyhow, I jumped on for her and I actually liked her. And then I kind of got to like everybody. I really got to like Lois. I really enjoyed her. And I think Erica Durant is a fantastic actress. And every time she had to play Lois possessed by someone else, phenomenal. Possessed by Isis, I loved it. Possessed by Feora from the Phantom Zone, I freaking loved it. That's my favorite episode of the entire series. And that episode actually won an Emmy. Only for these special effects and stuff, but it still won an Emmy. And I love that episode. It is the best episode of the series, and it's crazy. But she delivers. She is amazing. Amazing. And Supergirl's amazing in that episode too. But still, like the whole episode is fantastic. Everyone's acting was absolutely top notch.
It's funny too, because that's like Tom Welling's like first role ever, I think.
Yep.
So going into that, and then I absolutely loved Lex. I'm not sure, like Lex was just kind of exiting out when like season 5 you get Supergirl, but like at the end of season 5 you get the exit of Lex. Well, actually no, I think Lex only made it seven seasons.
He exits on 7. Him and his dad exit. And then, you know what's really funny? I told my friends, I was like, the writing's a little bit better. And they're like, what do you mean? I was like, yeah, they lost some of their best actors. So all of a sudden the writing's like really good now. And
it did get good after a while. Like I did like the introduction to some heroes that we've never seen before. The mini Justice League. I know it was different. A different cast, and like how they got their powers was a little different because you had Bart Allen who got his powers by getting struck by lightning. Yeah. Near Kryptonite, was it? I'm pretty sure it was kind of near Kryptonite, wasn't it?
Yeah, everybody's like everything. All the rationale was Kryptonite based, except for Aquaman.
Yes,
and we got a fantastic Green Arrow in that series. Like
I did love him.
One of the greatest tragedies was that the show Arrow never got Justin. What's his name? Justin Harper.
Heartland, I think.
Right, because he went on to This Is Us. So This Is Us exploded to record fame, and I was like, no, I just want him to show up on Arrow so bad.
Just as a cameo, we just need him to show up, not as Arrow, or even in the Infinite Crisis when they did that, like he could have showed up as like a alternate Arrow.
That would have been amazing. There's there's a lot of things the CW got wrong. The one thing they got right was crossovers. Every crossover felt amazing. Like Crisis on Earth X was just grabbed you immediately and was like, here.
Yeah.
It's like here's evil Arrow and evil Supergirl.
I liked what they did with Crisis on Infinite Earths too. Like, liked how they brought, like, I did like Superman Returns. I liked Brandon Roth as Superman. The writing wasn't as good in that movie, but I believe Brandon Roth as Superman. So I liked how they brought him back for.
And I did like him. I'm just sorry that they didn't. And they had to talk him into doing this. But boy, am I glad they did. He hit the gym. He was super jacked. Like freaking, what's his name? The new Superman there. Tyler Hoechlin, right? He looks so small next to Brandon. Brandon's like, roar. And I was like, oh my God, Daddy. I was
it's funny too because he played two different characters in that Crisis because he's the Atom from the Arrowverse, and then he came and played Superman from Kingdom Come.
Yeah, and then Constantine comes over and congratulates him. He's like, so Palmer, guess what? One of the Supermans in the multiverse is your twin. Congratulations on that.
Yeah, I liked how they brought him into it too. Like his show was good. Like it didn't get enough of a fan base to continue going, but they ended up bringing him back over, did some crossovers with him. Then he showed up in Legends of Tomorrow, and then they kind of destroyed the character. But that's all right.
Not always. I mean, they did not utilize him well. But when the story was about him, it wasn't terrible. But when he was an ancillary character, it was pretty bad.
Mhm.
I listen, I really love the actor. I really love what he does with the role. I think he has more hits than misses when it comes to Legends of Tomorrow. And I'm just going to leave it at that because I mostly enjoyed him. You're right, there's some terrible stuff, but I mostly enjoyed him. And they even brought the Spectre back from Constantine in Crisis on Infinite Earths. I did not see that coming at all. I was like, oh my God, they called this actor and brought him in. I love it. Like, I was so happy with that.
Yeah, maybe only short, it still worked. And I love that actor too. He's a Canadian actor, so he's been in a few things that I've watched. Continuum. He was a big part in the. I don't know if you've ever watched that series. It's a sci-fi series.
I've heard of it, but no, I haven't watched it.
Yeah, he was huge in that series, and he did such a great job. So I was happy to see him come back. Was I happy to see Oliver Queen become the Spectre? Not really.
You know what? But for television, I figured, this is okay.
I guess
I can live with it. And it's a crisis, man. This is where the crazy shit's supposed to happen. And I really love the idea that, as we understand Crisis on Infinite Earths from the comics, it should be Kara and Barry who die, and that Oliver makes this deal and completely changes the game on that, and he's like, you two are the best of us, you two have to live, and then forget it. The last episode of Arrow, I was totally bonkers out of my mind because it was like every cast member had returned. It was like all, and they knew, they were like, apparently we should be dead, but Oliver gave him everything of himself so that we could live. Listen, I'm a sentimental bitch. I actually thought it was really great. I love the actress who played his mom. I love seeing her come back for the finale. I love all those actors. I always thought they were great actors, and sometimes they made the shit on the page shine,
Mm-hmm.
So I was, because again, the writing, woof, there's some tough stuff to get through.
So speaking on other Superman that have, we talked a little bit about Brandon Routh. Now we have Henry Cavill, who is Superman, and then we have the new Superman, which I'm not going to say his name because I always say it wrong. So, but we all know who it is. What did you think of those casting, or who would you cast as Superman? Who would be your ideal Superman?
That kid right now. Because let me tell you, he was on a show. I think the show was called Election or something. And I remember watching the first episode casually, not knowing what I was getting into. And he shows up. And I'm like, oh my God, he's gorgeous and looks like Superman. And then he the main character is having this antagonistic, or not antagonistic, but they're just having this crazy argument, right? And he's and so of course this guy, Colin, whatever his name is, he said something to the main character, and he's like, of course you could say that. Look at you, you look like Superman. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, they know, the people who hired him know he looks like Superman. So when I saw him there, I was like, well, shit. I was like, if they go cast him for Superman, they need to call this guy. And I wasn't even thinking the movies. I was like, if they ever do another TV show or whatever, or I never dreamed that it was really going to come all the way to fruition, but that joke is in that series, like nothing. So yes, everything, the whole Henry Cavill thing had me, I'm sad and a little despondent about it. However, when they announced this guy, I was like, wait, I love this guy. Yeah, I'm like, this might...
Well, it does hurt even more that now that we're like, yeah, there's certain characters that are going to show back up from the other universe, like Amanda Waller is going to be in this. Peacemaker now, James Gunn just announced that recently that they'll be crossing them over. And of course Blue Beetle, but Blue Beetle was kind of it's self-contained in a way. You never had any heroes show up like they did in Peacemaker at the end.
But again, they did Flashpoint. I'm sorry. They did that movie called The Flash. They did that for a reason. I don't feel like they definitely didn't stick the landing with that movie. Like, one thing that they should have really, even if the movie still sucked, right? Which, and by the way, oddly enough, I don't think the movie like sucks. Like, I think the movie as a movie, disconnecting myself from comic book characters, the movie's pretty good in of itself. And the acting is solid. I'm actually really impressed with Ezra Miller. However, the choice of story and tone and everything just ends up being a fabulous Batman alternate universe adventure. If they had just stuck the landing on the ending, I would have appreciated it. I actually was like more upset that George Clooney pops up, because I'm like, what are you supposed to do with this? You know? And then the fact that we've got pictures of everybody on set from the 5 different freaking endings that they made for this movie, you know, just to really bust our balls and break our hearts over it.
Do you think that they'll ever release all of those? Like, they'd have to be like, you know what, the special DVD cut, like the 4K Ultra, will have all 5 endings. Do you think they'll ever do that?
Give it 10 years.
10 years. That does make sense, because you don't want to release it too soon and get people confused and be like, oh, we could have had that, and then be all like, because like I thought it was a bad move for James Gunn to come out and be like, yeah, these movies don't like have anything to do with future movies and that, so people really just didn't go watch them. That's why Blue Beetle's getting up there now in box office, but it's still considered a bomb.
And it's a good film. It's a good film.
It is. I just recently watched it. It's a really good film. So I'm hoping with that, that's probably why James Gunn's like, you know what, we're gonna bring him into the fold, because we got good reception from it. Maybe it bombed at the box office, but it still did good.
He said too much. He said way too much. He should have just kept his mouth shut. You know, like he just, I don't know. Like sometimes, like this is definitely a case of where less would have been more. You know, where if he's like just keep following the films. We've got surprises in store for everyone. That would have been okay, and then that's it, and that would have been great. And then we just sit on the edge of our seats. You know,
exactly.
And then everything that comes out in the press, he's like, that's conjecture and speculation. It's like, but we know David Corenswet has a contract. Yeah, he's got a contract, but I don't know for what yet. We'll just see. Like, that would have been better in my eyes.
Yeah, he wouldn't have to tell them, but like he did release. I'm excited for like all of the random cast for Superman Legacy. We talked about Justice League earlier. I grew up with Justice League cartoon and that, and Hawkgirl was part of the Justice League. So having her being announced and stuff, I was like, I'm excited for that, and I like Metamorpho as well. So
Metamorpho, I like that actor. Dude, and that actor is great. I loved him on Gotham as Mr. Zsasz. I liked him on freaking Barry. I thought he was great. You know, as NoHo Hank. I love him. So like, I am thrilled for him showing up here. And I really hope it doesn't suck. You know, I love Mr. Terrific. I'd love to see that too. That'd be great. I like Rachel Brosnahan from The Marvelous Miss Maisel. I think she's amazing. I actually think she's a solid pick for Lois Lane. Not that I disliked Amy Adams. Like, it, you know, it's fine. I'm just saying, if we're gonna go in a new direction, I mean, like, sure, I like her. The whole time I watched The Marvelous Miss Maisel, there's certain outfits she would put on where I'm like, damn, she looks like Lois Lane. Come on.
It probably helped the casting choice. James Gunn's like, you know what? Yeah, she does look like Lois Lane. Let's get her in.
And she sounds like old school Lois Lane. But yeah, I could see it. I feel like she could do it. I feel like she could do old school Lois with the modern twist.
I'm pumped for Superman Legacy. Like I'll be going to. I've never. Like Superman Returns, I did like that. I didn't go see it in theaters. Man of Steel, I didn't go see it in theaters. This one, I think I will be going to see in theaters.
I saw Man of Steel in theaters 3 times, right? And because first I kind of loved it, and then I couldn't get over I couldn't get over Jonathan Kent, and then I ended up wishy-washy about it. Then BVS comes out, and then I was solidified in my dislike. You know, I was like, this is everything, it just all the wrong things. And it would be years would go by. And another thing, some of these guys shouldn't talk. Zack Snyder would go, you know, on these little tours, and he still does them. And he answers, he'll do a screening of a film, and he'll answer questions afterwards, and he'll just say such crazy shit, right? So it really turned me off. I was like, no, I think he's describing like a horrifying, like Justice League. Like, I'm like, I don't want to see the stuff that he's describing, you know, and I'm not interested in Batman going undercover in a prison and getting violated in the showers. I'm not. I mean, maybe if it was like an erotica thing, but not in that way. So like he would say stuff like this. But then when they released the Snyder Cut, because let's face it, HBO Max desperately needed content. I was like, wow, I don't hate this. I'm like, it's a little long, it needs some editing, but I really kind of like this, and I'm really enjoying what we're doing with Superman here. So after that, I watched the director's cut of Batman vs. Superman, and the movie is a million times better than what was released in theaters. You know, and every issue, and of course it's also 3.5 hours long, but all my issues and anger and dissatisfaction at the theatrical release was answered in this version. And I was like, oh my God, they should have released this.
Yeah. I did, like, BVS was just not the best, but
no,
it could have been better, but I don't think we'll ever get a Batman v Superman in the future. Like you said earlier, give it 10 years, maybe. Give it 10 years.
But I do recommend the Ultimate Cut or whatever they call it, but the director's version, whatever they named it, I do recommend give it a shot because it addresses a lot of. Lois has a complete plot in this movie, complete, and it works, you know, and like. It just did not work in the theatrical release. And they gave her a shittier ending in the theatrical release. She's got a better one here, where all of her hard work and investigation actually pays off. It does. She can't do anything with it, but it actually comes to an end.
Interesting. I'll have to check that out. Like, a lot of people say, like, director's cuts are usually better. Like, Daredevil, what director's cut is better than the theatrical. Daredevil.
Absolutely.
So, and I'm hoping that Ben Affleck might have his year, might be showing back up as Batman in a multiverse movie, and might be showing up as Daredevil in another multiversal movie coming up.
Yeah, it would be so hilarious if him and Jennifer Garner both show up in this Deadpool movie. I would love that. You know.
Well, according to them, they're saying that it's not like they're throwing it in to like kill them off and stuff. They're throwing them in to say that this is a goodbye, because like Ryan got a start as Deadpool over at Fox. I forget the writer's name. He's got a start over at Fox as well, writing for Deadpool, and that they gave him a start. So it's kind of like saying goodbye in a way, giving them tribute that they're leaving and going over to Marvel in a way. So I'm excited for Deadpool 3.
I am very excited because the first two movies were both solid. And also, we are oversaturated with multiverse bullshit, but if someone is going to do it right, it should be Deadpool, because it should be ridiculous and comedic, all this multiverse travel, and Deadpool can deliver that to us and where we can enjoy it, versus like what the Flash did to us, which I did not find enjoyable. In fact, I found it bordering on offensive in a couple of cases.
Yeah. I'm pumped for Deadpool 3. SAG needs to get I feel like SAG's going to get resolved in November, and that way they can go back to filming it, because there's going to be a lot of on-site locations. That's why photos have gotten leaked and stuff. So I do like that they're not doing it behind a green screen. They're actually going to locations and filming in that. So that's going to be a lot of fun we're definitely gonna get a lot of leaks from that, but I'm still pumped for Deadpool 3. It's like that's one movie I'm definitely gonna go see multiple times.
Just Wolverine and him together was enough for me. I was like super excited. The fact that they keep freaking teasing us with Taylor Swift, I'm out of my mind about it. Out of my mind. I'm like, please let her be Dazzler, because even if she's not my favorite anything, I'm not going to take anything away from her hard work, what a year she's had, the ridiculous amount of money that she has made. Props to her across the board, and she would only bring her champion reign of the year into that movie. I'm sure people will go to that movie just to see her pop up as Dazzler. I'm pretty excited.
Yeah, they'd be stupid not to add her, especially since like her and Ryan are friends, and because she has a movie coming out that's like the live, or not live, but it's a concert that's going to be in theaters.
Yeah,
has already sold out in a lot of places. It doesn't come out until like
the pre-sales out of control. Pre-sales to go see Taylor Swift's concert in a movie theater. Wow. I mean, like, girl, get it. Like I'm blown away. I hope I'm that successful one day where I'm selling out Carnegie Hall or some shit.
Like, move on over Barbie, because I think that is going to be the movie of the year. It's going to break box office records, I feel.
Well, no, Barbie has won 2023, and that's all that matters, right? Barbie just shattered it and went, oh, wait, but you're right. Taylor Swift's concert might be the one that could dethrone Barbie. That's going to be really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But still, Barbie did the work. All right. So Barbie still gets her credit no matter what.
Yeah, it was a really good movie. I do recommend seeing Barbie. It's not like people tried to explain it to me, and then I watched it and I was like, oh, they didn't explain it very good. Well, it's hard to explain this movie, but it's so good.
The movie is whimsical and existential and funny. And I mean, like, I'm sorry that this is just not things that people like associate with thinking about Barbie. Like, but yeah, that's the ride you're in for. This is the ride for this Barbie movie.
Exactly. So we did hit that hour mark, but I do have one question to ask you before we wrap things up for the night. But I want to say thank you for coming on and talking and having a great time getting to know you through this. And hopefully the viewers at home are liking this as well. And if you guys are liking it, make sure to hit that thumbs up button. That'd be weird. Thumbs up button. Subscribe if you're new to the channel. Hit that bell for notifications so you don't miss a single video. But my last question, Cliff, is you're part of a council of comics. Council that gets together. You also have your own channel, so I'll be dropping the link to your YouTube channel down below, as well as the Council of Comics down below. I want to know, because a lot of people, I've met some of my like best friends throughout this comic community. I get together with one of them every week and do Between the Lines. But it's rare that you get to meet people and you hang out with these people. Like you get to hang out with them in person. So I want to know how you guys got together and where the idea from the Council of Comics came about.
Well, getting together, the comic book store, voila, people, you can make friends on New Comic Book Day. Just look for the other person buying the shit that you're buying and start there. I say that like it's easy for everyone. I know it's not. But also, full credit to Sam. All the music for Council of Comics is Sam's music that he wrote and produced himself with his band. So like, Where Are the Heroes, that opening, that's his band. He's the one who came up with the idea of the Council of Comics. If you go too far back, it's Sam's music. But if you go to June or July of 2021, you'll see the initial Council of Comics is him, two other friends, and going to our shop, and then him kind of interacting with the people there, and then it evolved very quickly, and then of course people's interest shifted and changed. And I had already done different podcasts and YouTube things about comic books already, so I was super on board. I'm like, yes, let's do it. You know, and I already knew Ronaldo for the shop, but that was easy getting him involved. And Ronaldo does a lot of his own artwork as well. You can find him as Papa Ray Ray on Instagram if you want to check him out. Actually, he should really change his handle to Green Shirt Guy. We've already ruined that for him. Phil was watching our show, and we would encounter him on New Comic Book Day, and it was like, oh man, you just want to be part of this? Like, just come on in. So like that, and then of course, like, so Sam really believes the spirit of the council is we're all the Council of Comics, right? But like, yes, the regular four would be me, Sam, Sam, me, Green Shirt Guy, and Phil. But like Josh is a major contributor. His kids are in a lot of the videos too. I've known Josh, with the exception of Sam, I've known Josh the longest, but the most consecutive years I've spent would include Josh. But Sam and I went to junior high school and high school together. And then I did not see him very regularly between then and now. It would be occasionally out in the wild or one of our high school reunions. So I was super on board for this. Our good friend Angelo, he's Toy Gains on YouTube. He does toy reviews. He was really into this. And he's been very encouraging since we started regularly doing the Sunday night box office and the Monday night keys and hot comics and stuff. And he's been in our skits too. I mean, and it's been great. And I don't know, it's been a weird ride. And I'm grateful to being introduced to this community. And like, I'm sad because, you know, Empire Comics was our introduction to this community, right? And like literally like a couple of weeks after just like learning who Brian is and Scotty, so like those are my first two exposures directly. So actually no, three. It would be Brian, Scotty, and DJ Lynx are all directly from Angel, right? And like and then that was it. One morning we woke up and he was gone, and it was just like completely insane. So I am really grateful to be part of this community. I love being on these shows. And it does, I think about Angel every day. It breaks my heart a little bit that he's not here. I'm not part of this with him, you know? Like he wanted us to get more involved, and now I'm more involved, and like I don't get to enjoy that with him. I'm sorry, I did not want to turn into a downer.
No, that's all right. Like, it makes sense, and like, because like there is people that I've come into this community with, got to know, and they sadly passed away too. With that, I didn't know Angel as much as like most did. I knew Empire Comics. I've been in some of his live streams and that, but not as much as like most people know of him. But it was sad when we did hear. I know a lot of people didn't realize, like, we were hoping it wasn't true, so we were hoping it was like some kind of terrible prank done by some scammer, and that because we wanted to hope that it wasn't true.
No, it was terrible. His old, well, I think I can't remember if she's his oldest or second oldest daughter, but she found his laptop and his YouTube was open, and she made the post. Mm-hmm. And she was really devastated. And then it was actually Josh. Josh saw, was looking at who had tagged Empire Comics and found her through Instagram and reached out, and that's when we learned about the heart attack. And then we got our confirmation. I mean, one thing I'm glad about, like me and my friend Steve, and Steve appears in some of our videos, by the way, or many of our videos, really. So Steve and I were able to go. But when we got the news, Josh was away on vacation with his kids. Sam was in California with his girlfriend at the time. That's where all the Council in California videos come from. And Green Shirt Guy was leaving for Germany with his son. So the only ones who were in town at the time it was happening was me and Phil, and of course the guys from the shop. And then, you know, hustling so that some of us could be there. And I'm glad we were. And, you know, his family's great. And thanks to his sister, the whole Cibrian family has voted for Empire Comics in the CBC Awards. So his whole family cousins, everybody. So yeah, it's just it's bittersweet.
Well, thank you for sharing that. You didn't have to, but you did, and I appreciate it. And it was a good story. I'm glad to hear that even as his passing, he still brought kindness to this community by introducing you guys to this community. So just think about that. That he probably looking up from heaven and that and realizing, you know what, he did good before he passed.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. You know, and it's reflected in his family and friends, you know, and this community here. So, you know, we'll I don't know. Like I anyhow, it's terrible. I'm always thinking of him. I always want to do something for him, and I'm like, it just has to be. It's you know what? I'm not gonna say anything else. I'm just gonna let it be.
It's all right.
And
Rest in
know,
peace, Empire Comics. Heart goes out to you and your family, and you made a really good council of people really care about you, and you brought them into this community. So we thank you for that.
Yeah. So any other questions?
That is it, man. We went over an hour. Usually I cut it off before an hour, but I did need to. I did want to ask that question of how you and the council came about, since you guys do a lot of things together, and it's a group of you that do it together. So it's if you can't do it with friends, if you can't talk about it, that's why I get together with Mark from Legion of Comics and talk about pop culture news, TV shows that we're watching, and comics that we're reading, because that's what it's all about. It's all about talking about things that you love with people that care about the same things you do, and it's a rare thing that we can find, because like nobody around where I'm at will talk to me about comics or shows that I'm watching and that. But even people that are in this community, we all relate different things. Like some people aren't watching the same TV shows I'm watching, but some are. So it's just you find that's what I love about this community. It's vast, and you'll always find somebody that has the same similar interest in something as you do.
Absolutely. I mean, and people who are happy to challenge me, which is great.
So I want to thank you so much. Like I said, guys, the link to his YouTube is down below, as well as the Council of Comics. And the Council of Comics have an IG. I don't think I'm following them, but at the end of this, I will be following
the Council of Comics 2, because something happened. Sam's main account got hacked, and of course, it was thanks to Meta. It was connected, IG, Facebook, everything all together, and he lost access to all of it. So starting from scratch with the Council of Comics 2 on Instagram.
All right. Well, I'll definitely be following them after we're done here, but I'll also be dropping the link to your Instagram and the Council of Comics down below. Cliff, man, thank you so much for joining me. I truly appreciate it. Guys, if you found this as interesting as I do, make sure to go follow him, go subscribe to him, go follow him in all of his handles, Council Comics, subscribe to them, do all that fun stuff. And that being said, guys, hopefully you guys have a great night, evening, day, whenever you guys are watching this. And as always, my friends, stay freaking nerdy.